Today's Q&A is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain name, website, or online store, make it with Squarespace.
Our first question comes from Yunners and Maxine Carlos, who asks if Wedge Antilles died on Hosnian Prime and if we'll ever see him in the spotlight again.
Wedge is one of those characters that I think unless you see a body, he's still alive. He was not on Hosnian Prime when it exploded.
So Phasma...
We saw her body fall into fire. Stop. Trying to keep this feud going. We're talking about Wedge.
Okay.
And Wedge is still alive. We didn't see him fall into a chasm or fiery pit. So I think that he is still alive and he's out there somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he could be doing anything. We don't know if the actor would ever come back to do anything in the movies, but...
Dennis has been a little bit cagey on that, and he basically said that no, I wouldn't come back for The Force Awakens. Like, he turned down a cameo for that movie. Maybe he's warming back up to Star Wars because like he was at Celebration in 2017. I would love it if he were in Episode 9. I'm not expecting it, more because of behind the scenes reasons than anything else.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always room for his character to show up elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure that he's going to be in books or comics. Like, they set him up to have his own squadron in the Aftermath trilogy. I think they're just kind of holding out until Episode 9 is done, and then I expect that they will flesh out that era a lot more. And yes, I totally expect Wedge is going to be back.
Kincaid Parsons wants to know if there can be Force-based threats to the galaxy after Episode 9, or will there just be an eternal balance after the Skywalker Saga? I don't know. This is a complicated question for me because I feel like you can have Star Wars without the Force, but you can't. Also, I feel like they kind of go together.
It's something that, I mean, I really liked the old X-Wing books because they weren't very Force-centric. But for some reason, like in Solo, I felt like I missed having the Force be present. I mean, it was there barely with Darth Maul, but
yeah,
like I miss it being an integral part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the whole balance thing, it does make things tricky with the prophecy. And that's just whenever you introduce prophecies, it complicates things unnecessarily. But I think that they're focusing more on the whole destruction of the Sith part of it. And the balance of the Force is probably always going to be a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there will probably always be a potential for Force threats to come back down the line. But I don't think they're going to answer that question right away. I think they're going to wait and figure out what they want to do for the Star Wars timeline in the future. And in the meantime, I'm expecting they will go back and explore the Jedi versus the Sith and the Old Republic. Mm-hmm. Like, that makes sense to me. It's something we know happened, and it's something that people want to see. So it just feels like it's a little easier to wrap your head around. In the future, who knows? I mean, I feel like I was one of the few people sometimes who liked the Yuuzhan Vong, just because they were different. And yeah, they weren't a Force-based threat, but I don't know that they would do something like that in the future movies. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we know because of stories like Solo and Rogue One and so far Resistance, there's not a lot of Force-related themes in it. But so we know we can have stories that aren't technically Force-related, but ultimately, I feel like Star Wars without the Force.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely room for it. But I think that when it comes to the films especially, the big ones, the trilogies, the big stories will probably involve the Force to some degree.
Yeah. Alden Diaz asks, what aspect of Legends do we miss the most?
My biggest thing that I miss is just how much everything mattered, I guess. And I've talked about this before. I think about how, like, back in the day, in the 90s, the books were the backbone of Star Wars. They were the ongoing story. And every book felt like it was big and important. And like, I mean, for better or worse, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a galactic threat and we have to deal with that. I don't think every story needs to be like that, but the canon stories, the canon books, I have mostly felt like are telling these smaller, more intimate, character-based stories.
Mm-hmm.
The Aftermath trilogy, I would say, is different. Hopefully, Alphabet Squadron is a little different. I liked, that's another thing. I liked having like theme or series of books.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was going to say. Like just the creativity that the authors were given to write those books. And like you said, you could have this mega threat to the galaxy in every series, and it did get repetitive, but not so much so as if that were to appear in the films, like on the big screen. I mean, we get Death Star, and then we get Starkiller Base, so that's already
still happens.
It's already feeling a little bit repetitive, but as far as different series of books goes, they could get away with that, and they could get away with some really creative storytelling.
It's a good point. Yeah, there was a lot of freedom in Legends because George was very hands off with it. He didn't view them as like the same universes.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where like, yeah, you can do whatever you want with Star Wars, and then they did. And so it was just like kind of all over the place at times, which I think was a good thing for the most part. It provided a lot of variety.
Yeah.
But sometimes it didn't. And it was like a new author would be like, I want to write a super weapon. And so I don't know. It has had its pros and cons, but yeah, I do kind of miss that freedom. And I definitely miss having series of books about like book specific characters. I wish that the new canon would start to do that a little more.
Yeah. And I'll say I miss the ability to not have to talk about whether or not we miss or want something from Legends to come back. Perkindo wants to know what we thought about Luke and Han being portrayed as, quote, bumbling idiots in the recent Princess Leia Galaxies of Adventures short.
I was not expecting the backlash from a 1-minute cartoon aimed at 4 to 8-year-olds.
Welcome to Star Wars.
I mean, you have to look at the intent of this little cartoon.
Yes.
And the intent is to entertain 4 to 8-year-olds, introduce them to Star Wars, and to very obviously say, like, Leia is a strong character.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, they made Luke and Han a little extra silly because it's not a movie for even 12-year-olds. It's for little children, and they're just being less subtle.
Yeah.
I do completely agree that, yeah, it's portrayed differently than it was in the movies. Like, Luke gets all tangled up in his grappling hook, but it's just because it's silly. Like, it's an exaggerated version of events.
Yeah, I feel like when this series first came out, people were really excited about it because it was like, it stuck exactly to the scenes from the movies for the most part, and it involved a lot of fighting and a lot of, the bad guys and stuff, and oh, here comes one with Leia in it, and it's all about her looking awesome, and oh no, the men look silly because they didn't have a plan, because they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, everyone in that scene, the whole sequence, like, they're all making it up as they go. Luke and Han come in there with a plan to get her out of the cell. She specifically says, like, you had a plan for getting us in. How are we going to get out?
Yeah.
And
they're like, well, we'll figure it out.
Like, even George Lucas has a quote where it's like, Leia is the one that knows what's going on. She is involved in the rebellion. He specifically calls Han and Luke goofuses. Like, she's the one that takes charge and gets them out of immediate danger, into more danger, admittedly. But, like, that's what I'm saying. They're all kind of making it up. And I don't know. It just didn't even think to bother me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, for that one episode about Leia, there's countless other episodes about Luke. One specifically where he, like, roundhouse kicks Vader in the face.
Yeah, like,
did that happen? Are we not gonna laugh about that?
It's okay to, like, make these exaggerated anime fights, which look cool. But then once they exaggerate something about Leia, everyone's like, well, they're trying to rewrite history.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they're not. Like, clearly, this little 1-minute cartoon does not overwrite the movie that started it all.
Yeah.
They're just being silly and entertaining.
And it's not even that people are like, oh, they're trying to make Leia look like more of a hero than she was. It's like some people are offended by how they made these other characters look.
I mean, yeah, like I brought up the grappling hook and getting tangled and all that. And like, again, I agree that Luke was way more competent. I think that was a good scene for Luke. He like problem solves and uses the grappling hook, and that's great. But it's just that this video, this 60 seconds, was more about telling little kids that Leia is awesome. And that's it.
It's a nice change from all the, princesses in distress stories that we've had hundreds of.
Yeah. And that's what they're trying to get across. And I don't think they're trying to say like, oh, she's a superhuman that don't need no man. Like, it's just that they're trying to say, hey, she's cool and here's why. I hope you like it, little kids. But some people take it way, way too seriously. And I should say that most of this reaction is from like the people we saw talking about it on Twitter. Perkindo, I thought you actually were very nice and level-headed in the way that you approached this conversation. So I don't want to be like, you. It's more like these people on Twitter who are really, really taking it to heart. And it's like, it's a cartoon for kids. Stick with the movie. The movie's what happened, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah. Joshua Gerald Butler asks if we think we'll ever get any more Biggs material in the future.
Well, we already know. I have good news for you, Joshua. He's going to be in the Age of Rebellion comic, the special, that starts later this year once Age of Republic is done. So we got Biggs content coming, and I don't think he's ever going to stop coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you stick around with this channel, you'll never stop hearing about him. Yeah. So there you go.
So I'm just like, I want to say that Biggs is like the best obscure character to like pick as your favorite because he shows up just the right amount. It's like once or twice a year he'll get a mention or he'll pop up and I get to go nuts and celebrate. And it's like he's not too frequent, but it's also like you just get that taste. Yeah. I love it.
Sorry, Veers fans.
Yeah. I always feel bad for Veers Watch on Twitter. He's like, I think Veers has shown up like once, maybe twice. And then it's like, oh, that's a tough pick.
Yeah.
That's it for patron questions, so now it's time to hear from our sponsor. If you don't know what Squarespace is, it's an all-in-one platform for building great-looking websites. They handle domain names and web design templates. It's all super easy to use and you don't have to have any previous experience at all. And if you get stuck, they have award-winning customer support available 24/7. Whether you want to launch your own business or Star Wars fan page, make it with Squarespace. Head there now by following the link in the description or by going to www.squarespace.com/StarWarsExplained to save 10% off your first purchase.
On to YouTube questions. The Bleaker asks how officers get into those pits on Star Destroyer bridges.
I assume there's like a ramp or a door or a ladder or something, but I honestly don't know. The question just made me laugh because I imagine it as like a power move where like an admiral's up on the top and he has to watch his subordinates like hop in it or then crawl out like they're getting out of a pool.
I imagine there's a tiny slide.
The Empire likes to have fun now and then, and like that's how they keep morale up. Like, oh man, I have to work in the pit today, but at least I get to go down the tiny slide.
Or there's a hidden door with stairs that, you don't get to know for a while, so like you can weed out who are the new guys.
Oh yeah, like play a prank on them. It's like the staircase in the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade that you like hit a switch and it opens up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but you don't tell the newbies about it. You're like, oh no, you just crawl in and out.
They're like, okay, there's a new guy today. Let's all show up a little bit early and already be in the pit. And then he'll be there and we'll have to watch him figure it out.
Ask him to go get coffee or something and he's like...
Stuart Lugsden wants to know when the next lore play is coming. Do a lore play. Just do it.
I'm working on one.
Do it.
That's I chose this question so you could know that I'm working on one.
Bother him more about it.
I'm doing Republic Commando next. I'm working my way through it and recording it. It's just like I kind of took a break from it because I know a lot of people do like that series, but honestly, they don't get that many views. So I'm just taking it kind of easy, making the next one. But I'm still doing it.
No, I'm serious. Coming. It is sad. Like, you want to do something that people want to see, but they don't get the views.
I mean,
So
we
might as well just start doing real clickbaity stuff, I guess, instead.
It's a toss-up between, like, I really like making the lore plays, but they are a lot more work than a standard video, I would say. So it's just like, I will make them casually, and then when, like, a whole series is done, I'll schedule it to come out so that you get to sit through the whole game once a week.
Yeah.
And then we'll pick another one.
Mad the DJ asks if Lucasfilm should release updated novelizations of the original trilogy.
I don't really think so. I mean, they have kind of done that with some, like, young reader versions of the stories, and they did make it line up better with, like, the canon, and even answered some things like, oh, Obi-Wan does recognize R2-D2. And so there are some things like that, but no, I don't really want them to use their time to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion.
Like, we know the story. I would rather you get an author to write something new.
Yeah.
I don't need to read A New Hope again. I would if they did it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather they spend their time making up something new.
Yeah. And plus, it would just turn into them retconning all these different things. And, like, I don't know, it would be tricky to do.
Yeah, you don't want it to turn into just a retcon fest of, like, in The Return of the Jedi, they get, like, really into how Leia remembers her mother, and, like, we don't need all that. They've hinted at enough things, and other, like, the answers are out there. So, I'm like, on it.
Yeah. Jay Mikowski wants to know if we could see a full episode of The Mandalorian or Clone Wars at Celebration this year.
So I think that we are very likely to get an episode for Resistance, just because I know how far in advance animation is done. Like, Resistance Season 1 was in development while they were working on Rebels Season 3. So it's been going for a while. I imagine the Clone Wars is the same.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a release date on that yet exactly, but that I would say, I think it's possible we could get an episode of that. But also it's like, a lot of people may have seen the story reels that I'm expecting they are going to make these on. But still, I'd love to see, like, the first episode of the Bad Batch done fully.
I just think we don't know exactly how long the Mandalorian episodes will be, do we?
I would guess 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, so just for time alone, I don't think we will get a full episode. We'll probably get a clip, hopefully.
I bet trailer for sure.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I hadn't even thought about that. It's like, that would be an entire panel. They'd be like, okay, we're going to talk about this for like 10 minutes and here's the episode. Unless it were a crazy long, like 2-hour panel.
Yeah.
But I think it's more likely that they'll treat it like a movie. Also, it's still shooting. Like, it's different from animation where, like, they have all the voiceovers and they just have to do the animation. And honestly, I bet they have episodes done for the Clone Wars and Star Wars Resistance Season 2.
Yeah.
So those, it's like, yeah, we might see an episode and they're only 20 minutes long. The Mandalorian, I don't think they're going to have all the effects done for even a full episode. So less likely. Oh, and I should say that for the past couple years at Celebration, they premiered Rebels episodes. So that's why I'm also like, I think we'll probably see something.
Almost definitely for Resistance, probably Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then probably just a trailer for Mandalorian.
That's my guess.
Maybe some behind the scenes stuff. Joseph Simpson asks if we've ever persuaded a friend or family member to check out Star Wars beyond the films.
Yeah.
That's right here.
I know that. Well, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. You're my greatest achievement. I was thinking, like, I have a friend who's very tactically minded, and I got him to read Battlefront Twilight Company. I know I got a couple friends into the Clone Wars and Rebels, and I got at least one friend into the Darth Vader comics. So a handful of times, yes.
I can't think of anyone that we don't know together that I've gotten them into something Star Wars related. Maybe a couple of books here and there, because my friends are big book readers. But yeah.
It's happened.
It's mostly just this. I'm his pet project.
That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. And we're also still releasing audio commentaries for the Clone Wars right now, and this week's episode is the Gungan Generals, so you can check that out right now if you're interested. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.